Right here in the backyard. The gallows stood right here in front of this wall. That's the main reason we do the tour after breakfast instead of before, so you don't have to sit here and think about that. There were a total of about 20 public hangings here in the courtyard. However, there were an unnumbered amount of lynchings. There was a lynching tree around here on this side of the building. Okay? And lynching, if you don't know what that is vigilante hanging. They would come in usually at night, overpower the jailer, who I'm sure didn't put up too much of a fight, and they would just pull you out of jail and hang you. The back jail was built in 1874. The front jail was used from 1819 until 1874. The 3 rooms upstairs were jail cells at that time, and there was no stairwell nor any windows except for one over on the alley side of the building. They would haul the prisoners in and out of that window, remove the ladder, and the window was locked up inside a closet. The 2 rooms on the end had cages inside of them with about 4 cells to each cage. And the last room, the room you all slept in last night, was known as the upstairs dungeon. And there were 2 shackles that they shackled you to in the floor. So there was absolutely no possibility for escape. In 1874, Kentucky passed a law stating that the jailer had to live on the premises. So at that time, the back part of the jail was built and was used until 1987. Unfortunately, I guess, I have lived here all my life, and I do know several people that have spent the night here, actually, in this building.
Now, where do you stay? Are you upstairs?
I live in the back part of the old jail here. I actually live in 4 old jail cells. That's my apartment. So I tease about it, but I do feel like a prisoner here sometimes. If you spend any length of time in the back part of the jail here, where's the couple that stayed in the jail cell? How did you all feel about that last night? Isn't that kind of weird? It's almost like you're not ever going to get out again. It's like real jail. But it's kind of like being underground or in a cave, you know. It's a very foreboding building, a very depressing building, and I can't imagine what it was like to have been a prisoner here. When you were sentenced to jail here in Nelson County, you were never allowed outside, so there was never any razor wire on top of the walls here. You did your complete amount of time inside of the jail without ever coming out. So if you were sentenced to 30, 60, 90 days a year, you did that full amount of time inside. The latter part of the back jail is made from 30-inch thick limestone. These were hand-hewn blocks here from a local quarry. And if you'll notice, each one of them has a hole in it. Those aren't bullet holes. What they would do is they would tap that hole on each side of the stone, and they would use a pair of tongs. That's how they picked them up to move them. And they were hauled to the middle of the town from the quarry on a train. And then they were brought, by a wagon down here to the jail site. And can you imagine a pair of oxen or a team of horses pulling that stone down here and then getting here, and they had an old mule hooked to a pulley system. That's how they would raise the block up to build the building. I bet that was really something to see. I would like to have been around to have seen that. The walls are 10 feet high, and if you've been through the back jail, you'll notice the pictures where the men would actually line the walls, and there would be standing room only in the courtyard to watch that. The last public hanging here in Nelson County took place in 1926. The last public hanging in the state of Kentucky took place in Owensboro in 36. So really not that long ago if you stop to think about it. Down through jail records, history tells us that somewhere here in the backyard there are 5 bodies buried. Now we don't know who they are, where they are, or why they were buried back here. One can only speculate that maybe they were vagrants or transients and nobody claimed a body after a death or hanging, and the county being too cheap to buy a burial plot buried them here in the backyard. However, about a month or so ago, I had a paranormalist come through here. I've met all kinds of ghost hunters, self-proclaimed witches, a little bit of everything. But this paranormalist told me that all 5 bodies were buried over here underneath the boiler room, where our boiler room is now. And the reason that they were buried in unmarked graves is because they killed the wrong prisoner. Oh. So you can imagine, it kind of makes sense. Back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, they didn't have photo IDs back then. So you could very easily have wound up in jail, and on hanging day, they came in and asked for Joe Brown. Everybody in the cell pointed to the guy in the corner. Of course, he's ranting and raving, it's not me, it's not me.
It's like the reality show, they all pick one.
And then when they actually realized they did hang the wrong man,
oh.
What else were they gonna do? So it makes
man.
kind of make sense, you know. I don't know if you got a chance to see the cemetery here on the other side of the wall. That was the first pioneer cemetery here in Bardstown. And there are 2 American Revolutionary War soldiers buried back there. One of those is a man named Proctor Ballard, and Proctor Ballard was the town surveyor, and he laid out most of the city of Bardstown here. The sarcophagi that you see back there aren't like the ones in New Orleans. Those bodies aren't buried above ground. What those are actually elaborate tombstones. You have to remember back in the late early 1800s, they didn't have embalming fluid. So when they buried you, they built what they called a stone box around your body. Kept the wild animals from coming in, digging you up, and carrying you off in the middle of the night. And ladies and gentlemen, you've now spent the night in one of the top 10 most spookiest places in the United States. We're number 9 on the list. A lot of people ask me how I live in a house that I know is haunted, and I tell them I made a deal with the ghosts when I moved in. If they wouldn't bother me, I wouldn't bother them. So far, they've upheld their end of the bargain fairly well. I can tell you there is something here in the house besides us, whether you want to believe in ghosts or not. My first ghost experience actually happened next door at the Talbot Tavern when I worked over there. I saw a glass sugar caddy float in midair like one night, just like one of these, full of sugar packets. Just like somebody was standing there holding it, pulling the sugar packets out one by one. And I watched till the empty caddy hit the floor, and when it did, I hit the door down the back stairwell. I came scared to death.
Whoa.
There were only 2 other people in the building with me, both of them bartenders, both of them right underneath of me. When I met at the office there off the kitchen, the head bartender said, "What in the world?" She said, "My eyes were as big as saucers, pale as a sheet." Of course, I remember just standing shaking all over, you know. And she said, I said, "I think I just saw my first ghost." And she said, "I don't want to know anything about it." She said, "I'm here late at night by myself. I don't want to know anything." So Brian, the other bartender, came up around the corner. He was a good friend of mine, and I took him down the hallway and told him what happened. Of course, his first response was, "Let's go back up there." I said, "Hell no, get your coats, we're out of here." So we left. There was no one in the building from 2:30 that morning until 8 o'clock the next morning. At 8 o'clock, I was up on the phone calling the guy that opened up for me, telling him my story. That would have been the first place he'd have gone to change the security tape. Of course, there was no camera where I was, but I told him what happened, and I said, "Taylor, please tell me you saw those sugar packets." He said, "Lisa, there weren't any sugar packets on the floor when I came in." Now, when I would share this story with my friends, first thing they wanted to know is how much I'd had to drink that night, you know. Hadn't had anything that day but ice water. Had a real high, had a triple ear, nose, and throat infection that week. I was on a real high dose of antibiotics, not hallucinogenics. So I can't explain what I saw, but it made a believer out of me. And when I moved in here, one of the first things I did was I went in every room and introduced myself and told them I was here to take care of the place, and you know, really stressed that, and that I didn't want them to leave, and hopefully they would make me leave. And I asked them not to scare me too bad.